Hello dear students and welcome back to the series on modern Indian history. Once again we meet in this lecture number 4 of the series where I Jawwad Kazi am taking up topics from this textbook Modern Indian History of StudyIQ IAS. This textbook is your one-stop solution for all your needs regarding modern Indian history. And therefore we have built up this series based on this textbook, guys. I strongly recommend that you have your own copy. The links to order them have been shared in the description box below. You can order this book so that you can not only prepare modern India effectively, but also make the most out of this series that is going on right now. So let's get started, guys. Thus far in this series, we have already discussed how after the death of Aurangzeb, the Mughal Empire starts to unravel. One after another, weak Mughal princes are raised to the throne and disposed of at will by the noblemen. While this rot has taken place at the center, it has its effect on the periphery also. The decline of Mughals is accompanied by the rise of many different regional powers, and in this lecture, we are going to discuss this rise of many different types of regional powers. Let's get started with our discussion, guys. Now, as we see that there is a rot in the Mughal Empire and the center, Delhi, has become extremely weak. Consequently, we will see that many different powers will start to raise their heads. They will start to challenge the authority of Mughals and try to carve out their own independent existence. These powers can be grouped into 3 different categories. The first category is that of the successor states. Now, who are the successor states? The successor states are those states which were founded by none other than Mughal provincial governors themselves. Yes, those governors who were appointed by the Mughal throne or Mughal crown themselves got heirs of independence and created their own states. Such states are referred to as successor states. The second type of states are called as rebel states. Who were the rebel states? Rebel states were those states which, as the name says, rebelled and fought against the Mughal state and carved out their existence based on this rebellion. These are rebel states. Third category is that of independent states. Those states which already had a sufficient, amount of autonomy, they also severed their ties with the Mughals and created their own states. Such states are referred to as independent states. Now, one by one, we are going to see each one of these categories and the states that fall within them and see how in the 18th century they will go on to carve out their own independent sphere. Let's get started, guys, over here. So, 18th century is dominated by this aspect of emergence of regional powers. As the center is getting weak, the periphery is getting independent. These states are of 3 types, as we just mentioned. Number 1, successor state. Number 2, rebel states. And the third type is independent states. Which states fall under the first category? The first is Bengal. Now, Bengal has something about it. It has always had this urge of, breaking away from Delhi or challenging Delhi. Right from, ancient times, during especially Delhi Sultanate period, we have seen that Bengal has always had a mind of its own. It always wants to follow its own, independent direction or policy. So rulers of Bengal will always try to assert their independence whenever the situation is conducive for them. So Bengal is the first in this context. And Bengal is also very important because Bengal was the most prosperous province amongst the provinces of Mughals, and therefore importance of Bengal is very high. Second is Hyderabad, Deccan. Aurangzeb, with a lot of effort, had subdued the Shahis in Deccan, and here again we will see that Hyderabad as a province of Mughals, will break away, Deccan will break away, and an independent state of Hyderabad will be created over there. Third, Awadh, another very crucial province of the Mughals. Awadh is based around the area of, the Doab area, very fertile area, rich in terms of revenue that flowed in from there, and Awadh will also get heirs of independence. Second category of states are the rebel states. Marathas are the foremost and most famous example, of course, of that. Right from the times of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Marathas challenged the Mughal authority, and in the 18th century, as we have time and again seen earlier also, the Marathas will, imprint their stamp on the history of 18th century. Next will be the Sikhs. Mughals and Sikh had a difficult relationship, especially from the period of Jahangir onwards. Aurangzeb had his own issues with the Sikh Guru, and subsequently we'll see that in 18th century the Mughals and Sikhs will have a lot of fights, and the Sikhs will ultimately carve out their own independent state under Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Then come the Jats, the agrarian community around Delhi, basically your West UP, East Rajasthan and Haryana. These were agrarian people. A lot of land holding zamindars led this community, and ultimately the Jats were also able to carve out a state right in the vicinity of Delhi. Now the Jats, the area that they occupied was strategically very important. They surround Delhi basically, and the access from Delhi towards Deccan passes via the areas of the Jat state. So strategically it is located very close to Delhi, and furthermore Jats being able to do that so close to Delhi also further emphasizes the fact that the Mughals had virtually lost control over their empire, because it was right under the nose of Delhi that an independent state was being created there. Then come some Afghan states, the states of Farrukhabad and Rohilkhand. These were created by Afghan adventurers, although not very large in terms of size, but then they were pretty significant because of their proximity again close towards Delhi. Then amongst the independent states, we will see the discussion on Mysore as well as the Rajput states. So this is the broad canvas, guys, of the different regional powers that will emerge as the Mughals become more and more weak. Now we will start our discussion on the first and most important power amongst these all, that is Bengal. So let's get started, guys. Bengal is very crucial. As I told you, Bengal was important from economic perspective. It was definitely the most prosperous province amongst all of the Mughal provinces, especially in the 18th century. Under the strong rule of three Nawabs, Bengal was doing exceptionally well. And Bengal gaining heirs of independence naturally is going to be a big setback for any hopes of revival for the Mughals, if there existed any. Who are these three Nawabs? Let us have a quick look at them first, and then we'll see their contribution. The first in that is Murshid Quli Khan, who rules from 1700 to 27. We'll talk about him shortly. Then comes Nawab Shujauddin Muhammad Khan from 1727 to 39. And lastly comes Nawab Ali Vardi Khan from 1740 to 56. After him will come his grandson Nawab Sirajud-Dowla, about whom we will talk when we discuss the Anglo-Bengal Wars, Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar. That is when we will talk about Sirajud-Dowla. Our discussion today is limited to these three strong Nawabs of Bengal. So let's get started, guys, and first meet Nawab Murshid Quli Khan. If you are wondering where you can get these PDFs from, here is the QR code to scan and reach my Telegram channel, Jawwad Kazi UPSC Preparation. There you will get updates of all my videos as well as notes that you can download from this channel. Let's get started, guys, and talk about how Bengal is slowly drifting away from Mughal control. Murshid Quli Khan was appointed first by Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb had an eye for talent, and he had seen that this man Murshid Quli Khan is a good, efficient administrator, and therefore he was appointed as Diwan of Bengal right during Aurangzeb's time itself. Okay? Diwan is the most important revenue authority of the Mughal state at a Suba level. Provinces were called as Subas. Later, during later Mughal times, Farrukh Siyar, who was brought to throne by Sayyid brothers, Farrukh Siyar made him Nizam in addition to being Diwan. So Nizamat, the noun form of this post is, the, how should I put it? The administrative responsibility during Mughal times was called as Nizamat. And also the Diwan, and noun form of this is Diwani. So Nizamat and Diwani were the two functions. Akbar had wisely separated these two. Okay, so at a province in the Suba, Nazim and Diwan always were two different personalities during Akbar's times. Why so? Because Akbar always wanted to keep a check and balance. Concentrating these two powers in one hand was a recipe for creating challenges to the imperial authority. Akbar never allowed this. But here in later Mughal times, when the rulers are not strong enough, we see that these two posts got combined in Bengal, and Murshid Quli Khan was holding both these. He was a very efficient revenue administrator and constantly sent back consistently sent back revenue to the Mughal treasury, and that is why the later Mughals were very happy with him. Hence, he was given both the posts. He never repudiated the Mughal authority as such. He kept that, figment of imagination alive, that yes, he comes under Mughal sovereignty, but all power was concentrated in his hands. Revenue was being sent regularly, so the Mughal ruler was happy that as long as revenue is coming, in these dire times when there is no revenue, at least he's sending the revenue. His rule automatically, over the period of time, started to become autonomous. He shifted the capital to Murshidabad from Dhaka. Remember this fact? From his name is derived the name Murshidabad. Okay, Murshid Quli Khan's name is used to derive this name Murshidabad. Murshidabad became a flourishing city, famous for various different types of trade and commerce, handicrafts, different types of industries, etc. Industry is not modern industry, but traditional industry. He initiated his own dynasty by continuing the authority within his family. He was the last governor of Bengal who was appointed from center. Subsequently, everybody was from Bengal itself, meaning that Delhi had lost control of Bengal from Murshid Quli Khan's times. So this is a brief background about Murshid Quli Khan. Now, why was Murshid Quli Khan so powerful and so successful? The sheer reason behind that was that he was a very, very efficient revenue administrator. Even in those worst times, through his, robust administrative systems, he was able to constantly generate surplus. He was able to send or repatriate huge sums of money as revenue to the Mughal exchequer. Historians report that during his period, there was a 20% jump in revenue. A 20% jump in revenue is a very, very sizable sum for those times, guys. You must appreciate this fact that when the Mughal power is waning, it is declining, when they are facing, humiliation in different ways. At that point of time, here was Murshid Quli Khan, who was able to increase the revenue for the Mughal state. How did he manage to do that? What was his strategy? Remember this key fact of Murshid Quli Khan. Murshid Quli Khan felt that it was best to have few big zamindars instead of many small inefficient ones. He took some very landmark decisions and created big zamindaris. It was easier, number one, to control few but big zamindars rather than controlling many small and inefficient zamindars. If the zamindar is big, if he has a big, zamindari right, a lot of land, then it becomes easier for him to exploit the revenue from the land. This was the idea of Murshid Quli Khan. And during his times, many big zamindaris were created. And many of these zamindars were Hindu, not Muslims. This is a crucial fact, guys, which will come later in the freedom struggle. It so happened that these zamindars were Hindus and created during Murshid Quli Khan's times, whereas the peasants were Muslims. Now, zamindar as an economic class and peasant as another economic class, there is always a chance of conflict based on interest. Now, zamindars, irrespective of their religion or caste or other such identities during medieval times were exploitative in nature. It so incidentally happened that the zamindars, a lot of them were Hindus, whereas the peasants were Muslims. Now, this got a communal tinge later on as we go towards independence. This was an economic phenomenon. Primarily, the economic class was what was responsible for exploitation of peasantry. But since along with economic class, the religious identities also overlapped to a great extent, it got a communal tinge. And this is very unfortunate, guys. This has happened, at multiple occasions where the zamindars belong to one particular religion and the peasants to another. Often the conflict between the two, which should be seen from economic prism, got seen as more as a communal conflict. Okay, you see the case of, in case of West Punjab, there it was the reverse. The zamindars, many of the zamindars were Muslims, whereas the peasants were Hindus and Sikhs. Now this always led to conflict based on economic differences, but often it could get communal color also. Later on, we'll talk about the Mopla uprising in Kerala in 1920s. Now, the Moplas were Muslim peasants and their landlords, the Jenmis, they were Hindus. Now, again, the conflict is based on economic factor. But then, since it overlaps with religious identity, unfortunately, it also gets a communal hue. Okay, so we should always be careful to understand the underlying economic causes. Karl Marx therefore says, guys, on a side note, I'm sharing this. Karl Marx says that it is economy that drives everything. Okay, economic interest, they play a very, very crucial role. Other identities are definitely important, but the primary driving force often is economic self-interest or economic factors. We should not overlook them. Anyways, coming back over here. So he created big zamindars and made them pay in time and full. That was his strategy to ensure that revenues were flowing very, very smoothly. This created space for financiers and bankers. A crucial point here, guys. Big zamindars are created. The zamindars are told that you have been given a lot of zamindari rights, but you have to pay on time to the state. The state is not going to indulge you on this matter. Now, it used to so happen that the zamindar was not in a position to pay the state revenue in time. But Murshid Quli Khan will not have anything of that. He wants his revenue in time. So those zamindars then required financiers and bankers. So we will see during Murshid Quli Khan times, a class of financiers and bankers will develop in Bengal, which will play a very significant role later in its economy, in its politics, as well as in other walks of life. Okay. Now, Murshid Quli Khan's rule, long stable rule, political stability, plus the famed agricultural productivity of Bengal, stable rule, all of this gave a big boost to trade during Murshid Quli's times. Bengal enjoyed a favorable balance of trade. Bengal was famous for many products which were exported to other parts of the world and also sent to different parts of the subcontinent. Silk, oil, sugar, ghee, textile, handicrafts, saltpeter, all of these things were in huge demand in different markets. Saltpeter, by the way, guys, is a mineral that is used to make gunpowder. And that gunpowder is then used in muskets, guns, as well as in big cannon guns, top, what we call in Hindi. Those are fired using gunpowder, which requires saltpeter. Overland route connected Bengal with Afghanistan and Persia. So even in those times, distance was very huge, but nevertheless, there was an overland route which did connect the products of Bengal with the markets of Afghanistan and Persia. And sea route, of course, was famous. Via Hooghly, it was connected to Southeast Asia, the Persian Gulf, as well as the Red Sea. This is why, guys, you will note that a lot of Europeans who came to India, the British, the Dutch, the Danes, the Portuguese, they will all want to have a role in Bengal's trade. Europeans played a very crucial role over there. Along with Europeans, there were Indians also, such as Omichand Khoja Wajid, who were major traders. So Bengal was famous for these types of Indian and European traders as well. A special mention is necessary for the family of the Jagat Seths. The Jagat Seths was a famous family of bankers of Bengal during the Nawab times. There's an interesting story about the Jagat Seths, guys. Let me, indulge in this story very briefly. The family of Jagat Seth, if their holdings were valued for today, what will be the worth of their holdings? Now just make any wild guess in your mind. What will be the value or worth of this family's holdings in today's times? Whatever number you might have thought of, that will fall insignificant when I tell you the actual value. According to an article that I read in Economic Times, the value of the holdings of Jagat Seth family in today's terms would be more than $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Can you imagine that? 1 trillion is 1 lakh crore and not rupees in terms of dollars. That was the kind of worth that this family had. Their net worth, their wealth was more than the wealth of all of banks of England combined. All the banks, including Bank of England, everything combined, and their worth was more. They used to give loans to the Mughal royal family, to the Nawab of Bengal, and even to the East India Company. Such was the riches of this family called as Jagat Seths. How did all of this start? Very quickly. A rich banker. By the way, this term Seth is derived from ancient Indian term Sethi. Okay. Now, Sethi was the class of people who used to act as bankers during ancient times. Okay. And during medieval times, that gets slightly changed, and it is called as Seth. Jagat Seth, the term, was a title that the Mughals had given to this family. Jagat means world, Seth means banker. So the banker of the world. And quite fittingly, because seeing the kind of funds and the net worth that they had, it was a very befitting kind of a title. Now, one Manik Chand of Patna had migrated to the capital of Nawab of Bengal during Murshid Quli Khan's times. First to Dhaka, and then when he shifted the capital to Murshidabad, he went there with him to Murshidabad also. Now, seeing the opportunities that were being created during Murshid Quli Khan's times, this man, already industrious and rich, he used those opportunities, and he became so rich in the process that he and later his generations went on to become the famous Jagat Seth family of Murshidabad. Unfortunately for them, they completely disappear after the revolt of 1857. A lot of things happened during the due course, but in the 18th century, they played a very significant role in the economy of Bengal as well as economy for East India Company and the Mughals as well. Okay. By the way, guys, we are starting a new batch, September batch from 11th of September. It's going to be a morning batch, 8 a.m. available in Hindi, English, as well as English mediums. This is one-stop solution for all your civil services preparation needs. In case you are thinking of attempting 2024 or any attempt beyond that, this is the ideal starting point for you. This is tailor-made for any aspirant who is starting his journey for civil services exam. It has all the tools, all the resources, lectures, tests, notes, books, writing practice, MCQ solving, you name it, and this batch has been designed in a manner to give wings to your civil services dream. So make the most of this opportunity, guys. Enroll for this batch. You can use my code JDLIVE for enrolling so that you get a handsome discount on the fees. Instead of 70,000, you will be paying only 30,000 if you use my code for this batch. And yes, I will be teaching in that batch history of modern India as well as world history, guys, apart from some other things as well. So do enroll for this particular batch. That was the first Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan. He is succeeded by his son-in-law, Shujauddin Muhammad Khan. 1727, he takes over power, and the Mughal emperor is only given fait accompli. Remember this phrase, fait accompli, which means it has already happened. Now you are just supposed to give approval to it. You don't have any choice to think otherwise. He secured his position, note this, with the help of merchants, bankers, and zamindars. So these are the powerful people that were created by Murshid Quli Khan, and these same people will now start to dabble in politics of Bengal. The next Nawab is coming to power not on the dint of his sword, but with the support of merchants, bankers, and zamindars, the same people who have been made extremely powerful by Murshid Quli Khan's policies. He annexed now Bihar to Bengal. Bihar, which used to be an independent province or Suba, is now attached to Bengal by whom? By Shujauddin Muhammad Khan. Okay. Shujauddin Muhammad Khan is succeeded by the next Nawab of Bengal, the famous Ali Vardi Khan. Ali Vardi Khan ousted Shujauddin Khan's son. See, all of that same type of politics which we are seeing in Delhi is also there in Bengal as well. The strong arm will be able to rule. This he was able to do with the help of banking family of Jagat Seths. That same family, which was so powerful economically speaking, is obviously politically also very, very intrusive. Jagat Seths and other zamindars who had brought Shujauddin to power now help Ali Vardi Khan to come to power instead of Shujauddin's son. With Ali Vardi Khan, the break with Mughal authority is now final. He stopped the flow of revenue and all major appointments to offices were made by Ali Vardi himself. He did not consult the Mughal ruler at all. Now all that facade that Mughals were the authority was given up by Ali Vardi Khan. All power was in his hands. But he was also facing the challenge of Maratha depredations. Marathas who were on the rise in the 18th century were constantly trying to expand their control, and in the process, Maratha chiefs were raiding the territory of Bengal. Finally, completely tired at facing the recurring invasions of the Marathas, their depredations, he decided to come to terms with it, and he in 1751 gives Chauth right to Marathas and also cedes Odisha, which was part of Bengal, to the Marathas. Marathas were able to wrest this from Ali Vardi Khan. Remember, Marathas have taken this from Ali Vardi Khan. There might be a match the following type of question or statement based question. He nominated his grandson Siraj-ud-Daulah as the next Nawab after him. So a young and inexperienced Nawab will take the throne after Ali Vardi Khan. After the rule of three strong Nawabs, you will have a young, hasty, inexperienced kind of a fellow leading the province of Bengal, and it will be during his time that East India Company will be able to establish itself. And once it has Bengal, then the road to all over India will be paved. We'll see that later. Okay. So guys, here we have seen the discussion on Bengal. Now let us see the next province or next successor state, which is Hyderabad, how Hyderabad will be created. Regarding Hyderabad, we must briefly know about its founder and creation of the state. The founder is Nizam-ul-Mulk Asaf Jah I or Chin Kilich Khan. Nizam-ul-Mulk is the title. Asaf Jah is another title. Name of the person is Chin Kilich Khan. If that was not confusing enough, he has one more name, Kamruddin. Kamruddin. Okay. So in some online websites or in books, you may come across this name also, Kamruddin Khan. He's same as Chin Kilich Khan. Kilich was his father. Chin Kilich Khan was his full name. Okay. By the way, this word in Urdu or Persian, Kamar. Kamar means moon and not waist, as you would imagine in Hindi. So in case you have heard that famous song, Mere Rashke Kamar, so that's not, alluding to waistline. Okay, it is talking about the moon. I've heard people sing it in very, funny kind of pronunciations. So that is Kamar, moon. Right. So get back here. Nizam-ul-Mulk Asaf Jah Let us understand his background. He was a nobleman right from Aurangzeb's times. During Aurangzeb's times also he had served in the army, and then after the death of Aurangzeb, he had been appointed as the governor of Deccan. Okay, he was the governor of Deccan Suba of the Mughals. He is the leader of the Turani party amongst the nobles of Mughals. You remember the parties? Turanis, Iranis, Afghanis, Hindustanis, Rajputs, Hindustani Muslims, that is, Rajputs. These were the major parties amongst the Mughal nobles. And he was the leader of the Turani party. Who was the Turanis? Turanis were Central Asians. Okay. He defeated Sayyid brothers. We have discussed this counter-revolution. Sayyid brothers had established their control and they were trying to edge out other rival parties. So as the leader of Turani party, he takes on the challenge, defeats them, and as a result of that, he was appointed as the Wazir, Grand Wazir of the Mughal state by Muhammad Shah Rangila. So from 1722 to 24, he was the Wazir of the Mughal state. But Muhammad Shah Rangila, being Muhammad Shah Rangila, he completely frustrated this fellow, and Chin Kilish Khan realized that he is best away from Mughal center, and he decides that he does not want to stay anymore in Delhi and rather wants to go to Deccan. So he forces Muhammad Shah Rangila to recognize him as the Subedar of Deccan, a permanent position. Permanently, he will be Subedar of Deccan, and he leaves Delhi, comes to Deccan. When he was on his way towards Deccan, there is a famous legend, guys. Okay, again, allow me a very brief indulgence to share that legend with you. It is said that when he was on his way to Deccan, he lost his way and happened to meet a hermit, a Sufi saint, a hermit who was living in isolation. Seeing him famished, hungry, thirsty, the saint is supposed to have offered him bread, loaves to eat, what we call as naan in Hindi. So he was offered some bread to eat. Famished that he was, he ate 7 breads, 7 of those naans. The Sufi saint is reported to have given the prophecy that 7 generations of this man will rule over a state that he is going to found. 7 generations will rule. And as coincidence has it, Hyderabad state saw 7 rulers. So he founded that state of Deccan, which later will be called as state of Hyderabad, and it had 7 rulers. So it's a legend, of course. There is no historical proof as such to it, but it got credence from a book that was written by last military general of Hyderabad, General Al-Idrus, who fought, or rather did not fight, against the Indian army during the police action. So he has written a book on the history of this state of Hyderabad. Hyderabad of the 7 loaves, Loaves, means breads. So that title, Hyderabad of the 7 loaves, alludes to this story where Chin Kilish Khan had eaten up those 7 breads. Anyways, it's just a legend. Interesting, so I thought of sharing it with you. So he leaves for Deccan, and then in 1739, when Nadir Shah will invade India, that is when Chin Kilish Khan was called back by Delhi. Everybody of some reputation was called to defend against Nadir Shah's invasion, and the famous Battle of Karnal took place, in which the Mughal army was routed within a few hours. Chin Kilish Khan tried to negotiate, and I've told you the story, how his rival ensured that Nadir Shah did not go back from Karnal and rather came right up to Delhi. Seeing the state of affairs in Delhi, Chin Kilish Khan decided that after this he will have nothing to do with the Mughal state, came back to Deccan in 1740, and then permanently he focused on his state over here in Deccan. Constantly he had to fight with Marathas. Many times Marathas have defeated the Nizams of Hyderabad, but nevertheless, through diplomacy and through otherwise statecraft, the state of Hyderabad continued to do well. Coming to Deccan, he subdued all refractory zamindars to ensure that revenue flow was ensured. He followed a tolerant policy towards Hindus. He was a wise man, had served under Aurangzeb, had seen the consequences of an intolerant policy. He did not follow any sort of intolerant policy and gave opportunities to Hindus in administration and military. During his time, Hyderabad was made the dominant power in Deccan. Now, although we call it Hyderabad, at this point, when Chin Kilish Khan is alive, Hyderabad as such is not the capital. Please remember that. Hyderabad as a state, it will develop later when the capital will be shifted sometime during the second Nizam's period. Mughal suzerainty was accepted, but it was only symbolic, more like a sham, an external facade, that Mughals are the overlords, but for all practical purposes, the state established by Nizamul Mulk was independent. Thus was born the successor state of Hyderabad. I hope you were able to understand, guys, how Hyderabad was created. So we've seen how Bengal was born, Nawabs of Bengal created a successor state, and how Hyderabad was also created. Now, after this comes the third successor state of Awadh. Now, let us talk about Awadh briefly. Awadh will also be famously ruled by three strong Nawabs. The first in that was Sadat Khan. Sadat Khan, an Iranian Shia. Now, Muslims have two sects, primarily Sunnis and Shias. Someday I will explain you the details of development of these sects. Sadat Khan came from the Shia sect. Sunnis largely are a majority all over the world and in India also. Shias, they are dominated in certain areas, especially in Iran, in some parts in Yemen and some other countries also, but mostly Sunnis are dominant. Sadat Khan was an Iranian Shia. He was appointed as governor of Awadh. Now, one good thing about the Mughals was that they were tolerant about other religions and they were also tolerant of sects within Islam. Now, in the Sunni world, the rulers typically used to be antagonistic towards Shias. And in the Shia ruled kingdoms, the Shias paid back in same coin to Sunnis. But the Mughals were not narrow-minded. Starting with Akbar, they understood the value of talent. And irrespective of the person's sect, he got opportunity in the Mughal governance system. This was the general norm. There are always exceptions, but the norm was Mughals were inclusive when it came to state opportunities. Like other Nawabs in Bengal or in Nizam Hyderabad, the way he did it, rebellious zamindars and rajas were suppressed so that revenue flow could be streamlined. He was given the title of Burhan ul Mulk by Muhammad Shah. Remember the title? Burhan ul Mulk. The word Burhan means voice. Burhanul Mulk means voice of the state, so to speak. He got recognition for his son-in-law as deputy governor with him. Son-in-law is deputy governor and he is the governor. He systematized revenue collection. See, in case of all the successor states, the governors who were appointed by Mughals had this quality. They were good at revenue administration. Guys, in life, finance is really the backbone of anything. Now, money is very, very crucial. Unless and until you have sufficient resources, you cannot do anything. Therefore, it's very crucial. Now, as administrators, also future administrators, remember that you must always have a view or, a way of making things self-sustaining, ensuring that there is flow of revenue. New land revenue system was developed during his time in Awadh. He tried to reform the Jagirdari system. Jagirdars were famous for oppressing the peasants, not maintaining the requisite number of troops as they were required to, and indulging in other malpractices. He tried to reform these Jagirdari system so that they will perform efficiently for the state. He created a new class of elites, a new gentry. This is a term that is typically used in history. Gentry is, the elite of the society. Land-based elites. This was created by the Nawab of Awadh, Sadat Khan. In politics, always remember, whenever a person rises up in the ladder, he always tries to create a support base below him. Okay, so that his grounding is firm. That is what Nawab Sadat Khan is also doing. He is creating a new gentry which will be loyal to him. This will be, constantly you can see this in politics across the world. During his time itself, Awadh had become semi-autonomous. All the power was concentrated in the hands of the Nawab himself. But here again, they tried to keep the figment of imagination alive that Awadh is under the Mughals. But for all practical purposes, it was the Nawab of Awadh who called the shots there. During Nadir Shah's invasion, I've told you the story about the negative role that this character played. He invited Nadir Shah to Delhi, and that resulted in that famous or infamous massacre and loot of Delhi, where 75 crores worth of jewelry was looted away, taken away from Delhi, including the famous jewels like Kohinoor, Darya-e-Noor, the Peacock Throne, so on and so forth. So this is how his life ended. After that loot of Delhi, he became remorseful and committed suicide. After him, his able son-in-law, Safdar Jung, he comes to power. The same Safdar Jung after whom the hospital in Delhi is named. You might have heard about this hospital, Safdar Jung Hospital or Safdar Jung Road. He's the same fellow, son-in-law of Sadat Khan. He was appointed also as Wazir by new Emperor Ahmad Shah. So not only as Nawab of Awadh, but he was also appointed as the Grand Wazir of the Mughals. He enlarged the territory of Awadh, and during his times, we see that Awadh virtually becomes independent. But revenue was constantly sent to the imperial treasury. So the Mughals were also happy that at least the money is flowing. Revenue is always very crucial, guys. After Safdar Jung comes his son-in-law, Nawab Shuja'ud-Dawla. You have to remember his name, an important Nawab of Awadh, Shuja'ud-Dawla. It is said, you can see from the figure also, that he was very manly, about 7 feet tall, and very, very physically robust. Nawab Shuja'ud-Dawla was a smart administrator, ruler. From 1754 to 75, he will be the Nawab of Awadh. During his period, we see that the influence of Awadh was most dominant at Delhi court. Because of his personality, because the role that he was playing for the Mughal state, the support that he had given to the Mughal ruler Shah Alam II, he became a very important figure in the court politics of Delhi. He was also made the Wazir of Mughals, just like his father was made earlier. At the time of Third Battle of Panipat, when Marathas were facing Ahmad Shah Abdali, Nawab Shuja'ud-Dawla was the decisive factor. Which side will he shift to? Now, Nawab Shuja'ud-Dawla had issues with both the sides. With Ahmad Shah Abdali, there was this Shia Sunni element also, and then there were other grudges with Pathans, Afghans. And with Marathas, also there were some issues, as in the Marathas were rising, they were constantly expanding. They had fought with Nawab of Bengal, they had fought with the state of Farrukhabad, with Bangash Pathans, so on and so forth. So he was also threatened by Marathas. So he kept his cards close to his chest, and towards the end, he joined the side of Ahmad Shah Abdali, and that definitely tilted the scale in favor of Ahmad Shah Abdali at the Battle of Panipat, because he was a powerful ruler, lot of resources, and he joining Ahmad Shah Abdali left Marathas without any single ally in North India. So that had a very big impact on the outcome of the battle. So that is Nawab Shuja'ud-Dawla, guys. Okay. Let us take a few questions quickly. With reference to later Mughal period. Now, if you have been attending the sessions, these questions will be very easy for you. In case you have not attended, the link for the playlist of these lectures is given in the description box, guys. Click on the link and do watch all the videos. With reference to later Mughal period, who among the following had escorted Shah Alam II back to Delhi from East India Company's protection in Allahabad? Which of these persons had escorted Shah Alam from Allahabad, where he was under EIC's protection, back to Delhi? So who was it? Mahatji Scindia, Najib-ud-Dawla, Sadashiv Rao Bhau Peshwa, or Imadul Mulk? I'm not going to tell you the answer. You will comment the answer in the chat box below. And yes, I'm watching and reading all your comments. So I want to see how many of you participate and answer. Those of you who answer, I will mention your names in subsequent lectures, although not in the immediate next one, but definitely in due course, I'll mention that. So let me know what is the answer to this question. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding Ijara-Dari system. We have discussed this Ijara-Dari system in the last lecture itself. It was a system of revenue farming. It led to exploitation of peasants by Ijaradars, and it adversely affected the flow of revenue of Mughal treasury. One only, two only, both 1 and 2 are correct. Neither 1 nor 2 is correct. So 2 statement type of question. Now, if you've attended the lecture, you would know that both the statements are right. Ijara-Dari system was a system of revenue farming where the Mughal state during the time of Zulfikar Khan indulged in revenue farming, whereby revenue assignments were put up for bidding and the highest bidder was given the right to extract revenue from there. This type of system is called as revenue farming. And naturally, when this system went through bidding process, the winner who won the bid in revenue farming, he exploited the peasants to the maximum possible level. And this not only affected the peasantry, but of course, it had an impact on the flow of revenue to the Mughal treasury also. So in that sense, both the statements are right. All right, guys. So thus far, we have covered all the successor states, that is Bengal, Hyderabad, and Awadh, that were created during the 18th century. After this, we are going to see the rebel states, but that won't be in today's session. For now, we will conclude this session. In the next session, we are going to start with the first and most important of the rebel states, that is Marathas. A lot of interesting discussion is coming up, guys, regarding the Marathas and other powerful rebel states in the next lecture. So stay tuned with me. And if you found this lecture useful, which I'm sure you have, if you've watched this far, then don't forget to leave some love in the comments. Like this video and share it with the fraternity of civil services aspirants. Thank you very much. I'll see you in my next session.